What's going on, everyone? So, based on the rumors that are going around for the upcoming Scream 7, this is going to be a very Sidney and Gale focused film. Now, this is also supposed to be the beginning and establishment of a trilogy, right? To quote Randy in his little video. But in all seriousness, right? Like, look, I'll never complain about more Scream. Yeah, I've said it a million times. You can make a Scream movie every year for the next 20 years. Because the beauty of Scream is it's always someone different. It's not a Freddy or a Michael or a Jason to where it's like when they're gone, like that's it. Now you got to reboot it, or you got to tell a new timeline, or you got to do, this, that, and the other, right? It's always somebody different. And look, I'm also very excited for the idea of a Sidney and Gale led film, right? Where, we finally get these two, kind of the dynamic duo, the two final girls trying to solve the case and get on the case and working together. Because usually it's like, Sydney's doing her thing, Gale's doing their thing. They've always had kind of this like love hate relationship. It's kind of awkward relationship. And so I am excited about that. But if the rumors are true that they're not really going to establish any new characters, and this is going to be the beginning of a trilogy centered around Gale and Sidney, my concern is how do you do that without making it feel and seem repetitive, right? If all you're going to do is just default to the typical tropes, and it's just like every film is kind of its own thing, and every film it's just like Sidney and Gale teaming back up to take on Ghostface, like, yeah, to an extent it's cool. Yeah, to an extent, right? Like, we all that are diehards for this franchise, we all love Sidney, we love Gale. I grew up with Sidney, I grew up with Gale, right? Like, I'm not going to complain about having them in the film, but at some point it's like, you need to do something different. You need to go in a different direction. You need to build new characters if you truly want this franchise to continue. If you truly want this franchise to be built upon. And that's what they seem to want to do. They really want to keep pumping out these films. Part of that is they spent so much money to acquire the rights to the film and the franchise, right? So, they need to make their money back and then some. So, they're going to make as many films as possible, which again, for Scream fans like myself, we really benefit in that regard. But I need good story. I need good development. I need good just direction. And there is this question of like, is the franchise in the right hands for that? Because they haven't really done a great job in just that growth and development, right? And developing characters. But, sticking solely to just the trilogy or potential trilogy of Sidney and Gale, again, like, I am all for it, but if each film is kind of its own thing and each film is kind of its own solo film, I just think it's going to get a little like repetitive, right? And it's going to feel a little kind of like, we already saw this is something again. It's like, how many people want Sidney dead? How many brothers, cousins, nephews, uncles, like how many motives can you have? Like, it's just, at some point it's just like, all right, like, we get it, right? The only way I see this really working, the only way I think that this would make the most sense to me personally, and of course I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, so let me know, but is if they go the route of this is these set up an establishment film, and this is kind of part one of part three, right? Of a three almost chapter series in this upcoming trilogy, right? Where, you have Sidney and Gale take on Ghostface, track it down, whatever. But then there's this more grandiose type threat, right? My guess is probably the cult route. My guess is probably the cult idea. They've kind of already hinted towards that. They've already kind of established that in a way. So I can just see them kind of continuing to just kind of build that, right? And you kind of have the cult and Ghostface is coming in, and you have Gale and Sidney have to take out that Ghostface, or maybe it's multiple, right? It could be three, it could be several, right? And then there is this master plan that unfolds, and you kind of get to see and get this glimpse of like, oh no, there's more. This is just the beginning, right? We've just scratched the surface here, and then that bleeds into to Scream 6 or 8, 9, right? Maybe we get a 10th. However they want to approach that, and I mean they could even kind of set it up to where now you have this foundation for Scream movies going forward, right? And you have this inherent built-in like reasoning and logic. And each killer can still kind of have their own motive. They can all still kind of have their own purpose and reason for why they're doing what they're doing, but it's all in this grand scheme, that they want to get across, right? And I'm sure, people probably thinking of that going, Stu, Stu, right? I don't know about that, but I could see there being some type of, usually if there's a cult leader, right? Usually if there is something, there's, if there's a group, there's usually somebody leading that group, leading that charge. But, I think the only way to properly make it to where it's not repetitive and kind of just be able to build upon Sidney and Gale is to establish like a 3-part to this thing, right? Where it's not just like, I mean, you can still to an extent have a conclusive ending, right? So like you could have Gale and Sidney take out this Ghostface or Ghostfaces or however many there are in this upcoming film, and still kind of establish and let them know, oh, like more is coming, right? This is again is just scratching the surface, but you kind of get this, like you get the explanation, you still get the big reveal, you still get the, like, it doesn't necessarily have to end on like a like a traditional cliffhanger in the sense, but just know that like more is coming. Maybe it's even oblivious to the characters, right? Maybe it's just the audience that knows, the audience that's aware. And I mean, Scream's always kind of done stuff like that, right? I mean, at the end of every movie, you get the ghost face slashing through the screen to signal that Ghostface is returning. But to me, I just think like if you kind of create this Avengers Endgame style film, right? In the Scream ethos. And I mean, that could even open the door to bring Sam and Tara back at some point, right? Because maybe it's linked to Richie, and if things kind of blow over, and you can maybe leave the door open for them. I've talked about that, the potential of like leaving the door open for the Meeks twins and Sam and Tara, because I mean they're still out there in the Scream universe, right? We know that there's still potential that they could come back. It's just the actors and actresses, are they willing, spyglass in them? Could they kind of find that middle ground? Again, when things kind of blow over. But look, at the end of the day, again, I'm never going to complain about having Gale and Sidney in a Scream film. I just don't want to feel like, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean? Type thing. As opposed to like keeping that excitement, keeping that fresh, right? Where you see Scream, it's like, oh man, I can't wait. Like I want to leave Scream 7 feeling like, oh, come on, bring on the next one. Not like, well, that was another one. That was another film, right? Like, I'm always gonna have a love and fondness for Scream. I'm always going to stick up for Scream to an extent. I am very critical of Scream, right? Like I've been very critical of 5 and 6, but it's not so much Scream the franchise itself. It's just kind of like the questions and concerns that I have for just the people behind Scream currently. I feel like they haven't really done the best job in that regard. But you look at like Kevin Williamson, my hope is that he can kind of get the ship right. Right? He's come aboard. This is his franchise, right? He built this, right? Like him and Wes Craven, but these are his characters. This was his, these were his babies, right? These were his children in a lot of ways that he wrote and grew and developed time and time and time again. And my hope is that he can kind of get this back on track a little bit, kind of get things back in order, so that way we can have, a quality trilogy ahead. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Are you excited for a potential trilogy? Do you think that we gotta have this trilogy? It can't be repetitive. It's got to be like what I was saying with essentially the first of 3 parts, or do you think no, you can kind of just keep going about it, just keep Scream as it is? Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. We enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.